Hello, America, and to our friends around the world, greetings. Welcome back. This one comes out of eastidahonews.com. Utah stepmom to spend at least 20 years in prison for abuse death of 12-year-old boy. I haven't read the full article, I've only read a portion of it. And there is a quote by the judge that needs to become widespread with dealing with these violent women. Without question, we live in a two-tiered justice system, and a lot of that is because we expect more out of men, because men are the builders of society. They are the maintainers of the infrastructure. They are the defenders from invaders or whatever it is that lurks on the outside. And as a result, we expect more from them. But as demonstrated by these various people, for instance, earlier this month or late last month, Andrew Wilson, I believe it was, said something to the effect of, you know, to Tommy Lahren, who's a bleach blonde idiot, that she made a comment that that's a man's job. That's a man's job. Blah 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 blah. And his comment to her was, "Well, what's a woman's job?" And she had nothing. And his isn't the only example of that. There are a lot of examples of that. But let's get to the basics here. The expectation is that women are nurturing, and that's a lie. I've said it before, and I must say it again, and that is when our our ancient fairy tales weren't bedtime stories. They were nightmare fuel to warn children and men of the dangers of evil women. I don't care if it's Hansel and Gretel, Snow White, Cinderella. These were all stories designed to impart moral lessons, and that is, don't ever trust a woman to do the right thing. They even have a medical condition. The Munchausen, they try to excuse SIDS, they try to excuse Munchausen, they try to excuse, postpartum. Um, in fact, there's a meme making the rounds that women should get menopause leave and period leave and all kinds of nonsense. But the point is this, and that is, with all of these examples used to justify murder and abuse, it's only going to get worse. And this judge held Nichole Scott accountable. And look at that. She's got a neck tattoo. And if you haven't figured it out, red flag is women with tattoos. That's all there is to be said about that. So Ogden is Utah. Stepmother of a 12-year-old boy will spend at least 20 years and up to life in prison after pleading guilty to his murder. Her actions were similar to what happened in concentration camps during World War II, a judge said, noting that isolation, dehumanization, and deprivation of basic human needs. Judge Camille Neider said that's the one thing she could think of that comes close to describing what she saw in the case of Gavin Peterson's death. This is good. because it is a woman judge who is breaking ranks with the sisterhood to apologize for that. I'm still experimenting with this OBS. This is a judge who's broken ranks with the sisterhood or the sorority to actually unleash a very, very pointed and accurate portrayal of this monster. And this is, I believe, the quote that I referred to. I don't know that you will get out, and frankly, I hope that you don't get out. I think it's entirely fair for you at this point to serve the rest of your life in prison. So the boy's name is Gavin. He died nearly 2 years ago. This isn't dissimilar to the case of the woman in New England who did the same thing for 20 years of a 12-year-old boy. This one is another 12-year-old boy. And yeah, you've got East Idaho News, but where's David Muir? Where's Britt Hume? Where's I don't know. I don't watch network, stuff. The sad thing is you might see Greg Gutfeld make a comment about it, and his is more of a entertainment venue that does it for laughs, and there is no laughs in this issue. This is just evil. A room with no bed or carpet, that he's not being given food and water. This is not any different than what happened to that man who was found at his early 30s to be 65 pounds, dehydrated, starving, having to make a fire in the attic that he was sentenced to in order to get the fire department to respond and rescue him. He had given up so much. But this 51-year-old woman, and this is part of the reason that I and others will say never believe a woman when she's crying. She's 51 in tears, wishes she could go back and change things and apologize to the mother and his siblings. She expresses sorry, but it's not that she's sorry. She's using tears as a manipulation tactic. And the faster you recognize that women's tears are designed to get you to essentially think of it this way: a woman's tears are designed to have the audience synchronize their emotional state to hers. Oh, you can't. That's stupid. That's pseudoscience. Go sit in a coffee shop and yawn, and then take note of how many other people yawn. It's the same concept. There's a parasympathetic system in your body that responds to certain stimulus, and this is one of them. And that is a woman and or a child in distress will do something to your system. It'll hijack your system to prioritize that scenario. Um, I want to say how sorry. I want to say how truly sorry I am. Gavin did pass away in my care. I should have done better by him. He deserved better. The woman interrupted the judge as she talked about Gavin being forced to eat his own vomit and feces, claiming it wasn't like that. Neider, however, said she doubted much of what the woman self reported, suggesting that she created her own story about what happened. Scott was ordered to serve a term of 15 years to life in prison for murder, first degree felony, and 5 terms of 1 to 15 years in prison. This is where it gets to be a great sentence. 3 for aggravated child abuse, 2 for obstruction of justice, second degree felonies. She was also sentenced to a term of 0 to 5 years for endangerment of a child, a third degree felony, and 1 year in jail for possession or use of a controlled substance, a Class A misdemeanor. She was given credit for the almost 10 months she has already spent in jail. All right. Now, if I'm not mistaken, what a lot of times, if a woman is sentenced, they will do what's, if I'm not mistaken, a concurrent sentence. Concurrent is essentially, it means with. Anytime you have a word that starts with CO, it means with. And that means that if you have a 5-year sentence, a 10-year sentence, and a 15-year sentence, and you do it concurrent, that means once a 5-year sentence is up, that means 5 years of that second 10-year sentence and 5 years of that 15-year sentence is up. And once that 10-year sentence is up, that means only 5 remain of that 15 because you're serving 3 sentences concurrently. If I'm not mistaken, this sentence was done consecutively, meaning 15 years for the one, the second one, the other one being the 1 to 15 years would be a second, 0 to 5 would be a third, 1 year for possession of controlled substance, but and she's already served 10 months. Not really, I mean, it is what it is. All right, the judge ordered that the sentences run. Yeah, okay, there it is. So, yeah, I was right. The judge ordered that the sentences run consecutively, meaning that she's going to be in there till she's 70 years old because she's already served 10 months. She's 51 presently. Neider called the case absolutely horrific, saying it is the most horrific she has seen in her 30 years as an attorney and judge. He wanted to live, he wanted to go to school, he wanted to be able to eat with the family. This is what needs to be brandished in front of Tim Burchett's face. If you're not aware, Tim Burchett is a congressman from Tennessee who called out monsters like this, but he was very specific to call out men. And 2 days ago, I challenged him to also condemn the women that are doing this. He's refused. And Tim Burchett is he's okay with this. So if you live in Tennessee, you might want to let him know that this isn't acceptable. That if he wants to side with child abusing, child murdering, and child predatory teaching, teachers that uh, adult assault boys, he needs to rethink his life. Nader told Scott that the bus driver, lunch ladies, others cared more about Gavin than she did, instead of letting others care for him. I'm wondering where the father's at. And the reason I ask this, I've been a custodial parent, been in relationship, went to court, fought, got custody, and then would date women, which meant that depending on the length of time dating, eventually there were circumstances of which they would interact with my children. There's no way in hell I would put up with a woman doing anything of this with my child. I'm in fact notorious for kicking a woman out for far, far less. The judge goes on to say that you are not the victim here. I don't know if you have ever been a victim, but you were never a victim of Gavin, which is often the point. If you look at the Russian teacher who has been prosecuted recently of saying she was a dream or something nonsense like that. Anyway, if you look at something such as that, and you listen to what she says. She locked the classroom door and she said something to the effect of, he's been openly wanting me. She was she was a 30-year-old adult woman was blaming an 11-year-old boy for her actions. And that's what this judge is doing here, is saying you can't blame a 12-year-old boy. You're the adult. You're the monster. And that's what women need to hear. When they make an action, good or bad, and in this case, bad, they are the monster and they cannot and will not be allowed to blame their victim, especially one that is underage. She said she would not give Scott a ray of hope that she might get out. Neider said not seeing her grandchildren or children's achievements and losing parental rights for Scott's still minor son are consequences, and minor ones compared to her actions. She said Scott's dignity in jail will remain intact, unlike Gavin's, because we don't do that to other human beings. This judge is phenomenal. This is the type of judge that we need, not the Stephen Core types that are out there that are just like, let me crawl naked in the hot desert sun across broken glass to just do my thing in your shadow. Yeah, if you're not aware, Stephen Core was the sentencing judge for Angela Yurimova and gave her the slap on the wrist saying, it's okay you destroyed a man's life and took the his children's father away from them from for at least a month and put them in fear that they may never ever have him in their life again. Yeah, there's no reason a loser such as that needs to be on the bench. This judge is phenomenal. I don't know what her other rulings have been, but this judge is making the right ruling in this case. Many people showed up in the courtroom to support Gavin and family, including staff at the school he attended before he was taken out. Neider told them their instincts were correct. She said people are told they shouldn't interfere and there are boundaries to what can be done, but she encouraged people who care for children to trust their instincts so cases like this don't repeat. An attorney representing Gavin, Brandon Merrill, said that stepmother in Cinderella would have been a better parent for Gavin. What did I just tell you? I just said that these ancient fairy tales aren't bedtime stories. They are warnings for society, for families. The boy suffered not just neglect, but prolonged torture from someone who was supposed to be a parent. Gavin's life mattered, and the stepmother failed, and her punishment should reflect that. She didn't just fail him, she hated him. And this is an infection that is rampant. Let me finish the quote here. She didn't just fail him, she hated him. This wasn't one bad decision, it was a campaign of abuse that lasted for years. Merrill continued. It ended with a 12-year-old boy alone, starving, locked in a room, dying. This infection of misandry, and don't let anyone tell you misandry doesn't exist. Misandry exists far greater than misogyny does. And this woman is only one representative of it. Tim Burchett is another. Luna and Peterson, both in Congress, are others. And those are at federal levels. And this is a heartbreaking story. This is a boy who'd never, ever had to have died. Look at that. It's got a bright smile. Now it's dimmed. One comment, crazy that the dad got less of a sentence. Look, I have called out, as I stated earlier, where was the father? Most likely the father was also being abused. And that is one of the dirty little secrets about this that is often overlooked. And that is men have no standing when it comes to allegations of abuse. As a segue, I've always been a fan, and I've encouraged all of you to do this, and that is body cameras and property cameras. Um, and I set up an updated system over the weekend. And one of the novelties of this system is it has a motion light. Neighbor pulled in, they got out, they observed it, and I don't know if it's going to be an issue or not, but I've been physically attacked on this property in the last 18 months. Well, in the last 2 years, I've been physically attacked 3 different times, and my child's animal has been attacked also. And whether or not somebody's bothered by the existence of these cameras, I plan on having them because I'm tired of not having evidence to file suit. I mean, I've had cameras in the past, but one of the all of the attacks have been off camera, and now I've changed that so that my area and my immediate area and then my surrounding area are now recorded, as well as uh, a newer body camera, um, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm liking the Bob Love. It's inexpensive, but I never know when it's working. That it's new, so that's why I'm getting used to it. Anyway, I don't want to make this a rambling thing because I don't want to diminish what Gavin suffered through. But what I want to really hit on is that comment about the father that you know he too he's spending 8 years to life, but without getting into more information, I fully suspect a woman of this magnitude is abusing not just the boy, but the father too. And there's no outlet for any of them. And that is weak on his part, but that's the society we have. It's the believe all women. And hopefully, cases such as this, and this is the reason I highlight these reports, is to break that spell. Women are just as capable of being monsters as any other entity which exists